Welcome back to the shop. Today we have the Flashforge AD5X. This is a multicolor printer. It is, however, a little bit small, but you have requested this printer the most out of all the printers we have reviewed so far. First thing, we have an envelope and a piece of paper, a bunch of foam, like always. The rest of the box is empty. And here we have it. This is a nice compact package. Everything you need is going to be inside this printer, and that is why the box is so small. Also, this is not a big printer. I believe it's only a 220 kind of a deal going on, so fairly little printer. But what is going to be inside, that is going to be the price ticket, because this is going to be our second multicolor printer. And this time we don't need an AMS like the GD Plus 4, and apparently this one is actually working great. We have a very basic paper with some instructions. We have a thank you card and the quick start guide. So on top, we have our European power cord, a baggie of tools, and the inside is absolutely packed with a bunch of foam. And we arrive to the meat and potatoes of this printer. What I can see is right over here is a screen, but the screen is on the inside of the printer. So there's a bracket right over here, and the screen is mounted backwards. So we also have a massive piece of foam. This is going to be our multicolor system. This is going to be very interesting. The multicolor thing is going to plug in to this head right over here. So after unpacking, we can see a joke amount of filament. At least there is something of filament with the package. This is just to try out your multicolor thingy. And these right over here are probably going to be your spool holders. This is a very fancy design. These are spring tensioned, and this is probably going to be one massive buffer tube. We can see right over here we have 4 PTFE tubes, 4 entrances, and it is all connecting to one, what it looks like a heat break. This is probably going to plug into the print head, but let's read the manual first. We need to remove the screen and place it on top. There are 2 slots right over here, and we also have our ribbon cable for the screen, and then this bracket is to discard, I guess. Very expensive way of securing your screen. It is partially connected to this cable, and what I think it is just because they had too much trouble and they also glued in this ribbon cable. So this is going to be a very secure way, and the only thing you have to do is just switch it around and put it in this bracket right over here. So that is just what I'm going to do. These are secured with some self-tappers. The screen is loose. Now we also need to remove this bracket. Turn this screen around, put it on that frame, and then it should slide over just like that. And we can remove the protective cover. What I also can see is this flex plate. Super interesting. They have some kind of a tab you can grab on, and this is some injection molded plastic. It is actually super easy to put the bed in and pull it out. Now we also need to remove a few bolts because this bed is completely tightened to the frame for transport reasons. So all the transportation bolts are out. What I can notice, and this is something I never see on the other printers, is the lead screws and the linear rods are completely dry. Let's look in the baggie and see if they delivered us with some grease, because this thing is completely bone dry. Not good if you want to do any 3D printing. I've also been looking in the manual, and I have to say this is not the clearest manual I have ever seen. The pictures are fairly small. They are trying to show you how to do all the things, but in my opinion, this could have been done a little bit better, especially for people that are new, which is probably going to be their audience or their target, new people, and then these manuals need to be absolutely perfect. And the reason why I think it is not absolutely perfect is because this thing right over here, this is the exploded view of a little page on how to set up the screen, because they probably had a bunch of support requests on how to put on that freaking screen. Probably could be a little bit better. Now, let's look what's in this baggie. So inside we have this little tube. This is 3D printing adhesive from Flashforge. We can see it is very liquidy. Generic snippers, some Allen keys, and a big plunger if you are screwing up your nozzle or it gets clogged. A small screwdriver, and then we have this packet of grease. This is going to be grease that we need to put on our lead screws. So we don't see oils for our linear rods. Now there is a lot of debate on to put oils or greases on the rods. In my opinion, the thinner it is, the better it is for your rods. We can see it on the GT+4. It really acts well if you put on a thin oil. Any type of bike chain oil without additives is going to be just fine. And all these thick greases are going to be perfect for your lead screws of your bed. So before I lube up my printer, maybe let's look at what we have for the multicolor system, because it looks like we have some assembly to do. Okay, so right now I'm going to try and mount this multicolor unit, and they are asking me for M3 × 6 screws. There is only one baggie in here. This is probably going to be it, not labeled. Maybe it's better to put a little label on it. So I'm going to need this plate right over here, and we need to mount it right over here on the side. Pretty nifty design. If you want to remove this box, it is fairly easy, probably just a little twist away for being released from the frame. Then we need to take this, put it on in a 45-degree manner like that, and we should be able to snap it on, and it just snapped on like that. So there is a little bolt hole right over here on this little tubey, and then on the print head on top there is a threaded insert, and they want us to connect this threaded insert with this piece so this doesn't pop out of the print head. Pretty nifty. We are dealing with a lot of pushing forces, so this is a very smart approach. First thing we can see is that we can just pull off this front cover. We can also see we have a bunch of gold contacts right over there, but these are not poco pins. These are connecting with the breakout port right over here. Pushed in the blue clip, and now we are going to retighten this for the final time. So this is now one solid piece connected to this box right over there. Inside the print head, right over here, we have our tubing going in. We can also see there is a breakout board. This is going to be your filament sensor. We also have our lever cutter from the side, so it is probably going to slam on the side, snipping our filament, which is different from the GT one, which is just a lever doing this. Then we also have our fan. It is not sitting straight over the heat break, which is unfortunate because for PLA we want proper cooling. Then we have our hot end. This is something super interesting, never seen this before. So we can snap this open. We can also remove this heat block like that, and then we can just take out our complete nozzle assembly. We can see our copper heat break right over there, and we can also see there is some blue filament inside of this tubing. So super easy to replace. It is proprietary. I wouldn't be surprised if we already have some clones of it, but we can also see there is a hardened tip inside. Now putting it back in is a little bit harder. Close the magnetic heat break, and now everything is back together. The only thing I can't see is any type of thermal paste between these interfaces, which is not ideal. We are just using friction. Maybe it's better if you're going to add some thermal paste on the backside of this nozzle to help with the heat transfer, but we are going to figure that out. And then this cover, we have some magnets, our fan, and everything just snaps together like that. Now right here in the back, we also have some covers. These are completely empty. Not sure what these are about. Probably going to be for the M5 Pro, which is completely enclosed, which also is probably going to have a chamber fan, and I guess that you would put in any type of carbon filter right over here. Because this is completely open frame, they probably didn't bother, and they are using the same molds for this back piece on the AD5X. Now the only thing we need to do to fire up this printer is going to be installing these, and it looks like these are just going to snap on the printer. So the blue stickers, these are our numbers, and we can also see that right over here we have the number 3. So I'm going to put that one over here. Okay, I figured out why there are numbers on these parts, and that is because these are rotating in a different way. So if we turn this one to the left, it springs back. If we turn this one to the left, it doesn't. We need to turn to the right for that, and then it springs back. So we have a spring tension that is going to be left on this side, and we have a spring tension on this side on the right. So very, very smart. Now it's time to grab some spools, turn on this system, and see what we are working with. Now they also delivered the cable, which is going to make this communicate with the printer. And we also need to mount this bracket to finish everything off. I already made a mistake. This hub is hanging way too low, because right now, if I want to put my spool on, yeah, this isn't going to fit. And this is now hitting my, whatever this thing is called. Now, what I'm going to do is turn this bracket around. So this is floating on top, giving me hopefully more space for my spool. Just like that, I think it's going to be an easy fix. Yeah, so 1 kilogram spools are now fitting without hitting this block right over here. And before we turn it on, it's time to grease and oil our linear rails and rods. In the back, very simple, we have our Ethernet port, our on and off button, and we also have our power cords. And in the back we can also see a stamped sheet metal, and we also have right over here our poop chute. We also see our belt tensioners right over here, and a little port that should be for a fan, but there is no fan behind this port. After all the testing, we will remove the paneling and see what we are working with. We are ready to boot up. Only thing I can say is I have greased and oiled everything inside, and everything was super dry and very dirty. Especially the linear rails were still gunky, so you definitely want to clean them before you use it. We are going to use English print preparation. We already did it. We are going to use Wi-Fi. Connected to the Wi-Fi, we are going to skip binding our account. And right now it is doing the self-check. Right now the printer is starting to smell. It is heating up the bed for the first time. The nozzle has been used before, we could see that. We have a triple bed situation. So we have 2 lead screws at the front, 1 lead screw in the back. We have a linear rail left and right, and we have a double linear rail right there in the back. Now, when we are going to open up, we will see if we have independent stepper motors, but at this pricing I am very doubtful that we have independent stepper motors, so we can do our bed leveling. So while I'm waiting for the self-checking, we have our belt tensioning mechanism, we have 1 stepper, and then we have a bunch of idlers connected to the lead screws. So we have a 1Z motor configuration. So the bed heating is taking forever, which makes me believe that this bed right here is going to be DC heated. We are not dealing with an AC power, we are using DC power to heat the bed. So right now it is doing the bed leveling, and we are probably also dealing with a piezo system, which means there are going to be load cells in the bed that are detecting the nozzle probing. One thing I can also say is that the AD5X is super quiet. All the calibrations are done, now it's time to load up some filament. For that we have 3 types of high-speed PLA from Flashforge, and we also have Polymaker. This is going to be Polysonic PLA Pro. This is a very fast PLA, and we're going to see what this is going to do with our printer. All the spools are loaded, and this is actually a very neat system. We have a drive motor right over here, and this is pushing the filament through the tubing right into the print head. We can also see this right over here has been spring loaded. So every time it's going to grab a spool, it is going to tighten this spring just the same like this one, and this one. And just by keeping on pulling and pulling, the spring tension is going to increase. At some point it will probably start ratcheting to not over tighten it, and every time it wants to backfeed the filament, it will auto respool the filament that it is feeding back through this box. Very smart, I kinda like it. Now it's time to put in some files and see if we can get a print out of it. Okay, so this just happened. We just finalized the filament settings, which means I have selected all the filaments in the correct order, or at least that is what I'm thinking. Now, one thing I noticed, the screen is super nice. It is super responsive, nothing we can see with other brands like a Chidi that has an awful user interface. It is dog slow. This one, very responsive. After we have done that, it started leveling the bed, leveling the print head, and now it is preheating. So, as soon as you are doing the wizard, putting in filament, saying what type of filament it is going to automatically start a test print for you, which is what I'm waiting for right now. So while it is preheating, here are some basic specs that I figured out while watching at this printer. We got sensorless homing, and we got GT2 belts, which means it is basically doing everything every common printer is doing right now. It apparently runs some kind of a clipper. Now I have punched in the IP address of this printer into my web interface, and unfortunately I can't find the web interface of this printer, so they are not running a fluid or a mainsail. But apparently these have already been hacked to hell, and you can install clipper or fluid or mainsail on this printer and do whatever you want. That's maybe for a future video, but right now I'm going to test the stock setup. I'm a little bit bummed that we don't have mainsail or fluid on this printer, but hey, at least now you know. And here we have it, our first maker coin. Now I have to say that the Polymaker Black, so the Sonic PLA, it didn't like it at all. We had a huge amount of over extrusion in the beginning, but it did manage to print it, and we have our nice first coin. Bed adhesion still super great. Our first maker coin. It is not perfect, we definitely need to do some tweaking on our settings. No point in trying to do more models with the sliced files. We can see it is not liking it at all. We are going to do our own profiles. Now, unfortunately, there is no way to contact this printer except for the proprietary software from Flashforge, which is, again, a reskinned version of Orca. Oh my god. We did an update. Nothing changed. We still cannot access the printer with regular Orca. That's too bad. We downloaded the Flashforge one. The only thing you can do is set your temperatures and the colors. That's about it. So this really feels like what Algo with the CC was doing. Now Flashforge is doing the same, only this time we do have a mod available to mod this printer and open it up more so you can use fluid or mainstay. I think it's called the Z mod. Not going to show you, this is not in the scope of this video. We are going to try and test the stock conditions, but Flashforge, why? So the Flashforge AD5X has been busy. It is now over 20 hours of print time. We probably have done over 500 filament changes. And yeah, it's not looking that terrible. The only thing I can see is we have some slight under extrusion, but the color changing stuff is looking pretty good. Now in the back, however, we have a massive mess going on. Yeah, the bucket is already full and we are only halfway. So time to clean it up and do some testing. The machine is doing great, but I want to remove it from the table. So we are going to test the power resume function. So right here in my hand, I have the power cord. And once it's continuing with printing, I will be pulling it. Whoopsie, we have a problem. All right, so I'm going to grab this puppy and I'm going to move it to its new place. Et voila! Let's plug it back in and see if the power loss is actually working. Great news, it is asking me to continue to print. I'm going to press yes. And now, fingers crossed. All right, so we can see it is actually doing it. But do we have skipped layers, inconsistencies? I guess we will find out. From what I can see now, it is actually doing the trick. I am super happy. Time to snip the filament. And for that, I will be using this yellow filament. The yellow spool is right over there. We are going to see in probably half an hour if we have a problem or not. So what happened? It did the print move that it needed to do, and now it is purging all the rest of the material through the PTFE tube out of the back. And now it's probably going to be any minute that it is asking me to replace it with a different spool. Or at least that is what I think. And here we have our clue. The filament is out and we can now replace it with a new spool. Time to put the spool back and make it resume the print. It looks like the Flashforge is capable of doing what I consider the bare minimum. Power resume and resuming filament, which couldn't be said about the GD box. So Flashforge, thumbs up for that. And here we have it, 37 hours and 27 minutes for this multicolor print. And it looks like everything printed just fine, but the only way to know for sure is take it out and take it for a test spin. All right, and here we have it. We have the wheels. It is just sliding off. The underside is looking great. And like I told you before, when we look at the top side, we have the smallest bit of under extrusion. And the cool part is you can actually rotate these wheels. These are completely printed in place. We got our perch tower, it did the job. And then the masterpiece, we have a little bit of a defect right over here. On the pink, it almost rubs off. We can also see it right over here. We have a little bit of bleeding going on. A little bit right over here. We also see the same thing right over here. This is probably a slicer fault. Same thing for here. And the other side is pretty much looking perfect. Oh yeah! We can actually open and close this object. This is such a cool model. This has been over 1000 color changes. Can you believe that? This is just amazing. So we have a little bit of pink right over here. And these are blue and black. This is as close as a perfect print I have ever seen multicolor printed. Now it is not all perfect. Right over here we can see some bleeding going on from the blue or black color. Same thing can be seen right over here. So we do have a little bit of bleeding going on. I think we need to purge a little bit more. And the same thing right here on the back side. We can also see that the yellow is not of the same color. So right now I'm going to try and assemble everything, and it looks like these little wheels are just snapping into the bottom of this print. So let's give that a try. Oh yeah, it rotates. This is just a great model for multicolor printing. And just like that, you snap it in and we have a wheel. Yeah, this is such a cool model. This is an actual model from Prusa. Prusa has made this multicolor test. This is a calibration test, so I'm going to put the links down below so you can try it yourself. But closing this up, this is just such an amazing model for you to try out. One more test I want to do is going to be, can it print carbon-filled filaments? All right, here we have it. This is going to be the last test that we are going to do today, which is going to be the VFA test. We have also done a cooling test with this piece right over here. We've done the TPU test and we have done a tolerance test, but this time not on our regular filaments. Right over here, we have used glass-filled nylon. On an open bench system like this one, this is already pretty amazing. Although it's not a big part, it is still pretty amazing to see that it is actually able to do stuff like this. This is a tolerance test all the way from 35 to 10, which is probably going to be 0.10 to 0.35 of a millimeter of tolerance. Now, 35 is absolutely no problem. This is free. Also 30 is free, 25 is free, and then we start to bind up at the 20. This is pretty typical behavior on a nylon, so I consider this a very good result. We have also done a TPU test. This is going to be G-Tech 95A, and this also printed very decent. Yeah, no complaining here. This was about 4 millimeters cubed, and this is just a very good result. But unfortunately, the first layer was a little bit problematic, but still, this is a very good result. Also done an overhang test, and we can basically see that up to 70 degrees of an angle looks very, very good. So we got our 60 and we have our 70, and we can see that 60 degrees is absolutely perfect. So the cooling capabilities of this printer are actually not that bad. And while the print quality is very good, we do have under extrusion. We also have done a VFA test all the way from 70 to 300 millimeters a second, and all the sides are looking very decent. We definitely don't have a VFA issue on the Flashforge AD5X. Power zoom worked, filament runout sensor worked, multicolor seems to be working very well, although, like always, we do have a huge mess of wasted filament when we are doing multicolor. But still, this is a great model. Over 1000 color changes in this thing. It took about 36 hours, and now I have my very own garbage bin that is looking absolutely stellar. Looking from an objective standpoint, this is a very attractive printer. Color changing works absolutely beautiful. We have a 110 degree bed, although that after some heat soaking, we only see around 100 degrees. So when you set your temperature, it is mostly going to be 10 degrees below what you have set. So 100 degrees will be around 90 for you. Now on the hot end, also very capable hot end. So for this glass filled nylon, 280 degrees on the nozzle, and also it is hardened. So everything that you really want in this printer is already set and good to go. So far I am really impressed with the Flashforge AD5X. The only thing that is putting a stain on this thing is not opening clipper enough so you have your fluid interfaces. So for Flashforge, I would really like to see you do better so we can at least log into our printer with just a regular IP address. Because right now I need to make an account, I need to log in, and after all of that, you can see that the page that is greeting you is basically useless. We don't have a camera, so we don't see anything. You cannot set your temperatures, so that is pointless. You don't see your bed mesh, you cannot calibrate, you can basically do nothing with the integrated interface that Flashforge is giving to you. Now, there are two ways to look at this. First of all, it's going to be your beginner and entry level of people. If you are new to the hobby and you just want a color changer that is reliable, I can tell you after 36 hours and 1000 color changes, this is an impressive machine. Now, if you're a little bit more advanced or even at the pro level, then this is severely locked down. Now, fortunately, from all I can find on the interwebs, this machine is hackable, which means that we can install a mod and get our fluid interfaces back. So if this is something that you would like to see in the future, let me know down below in the comment section. But right now, before we end the video, I'm going to open up all the panels and see what we are working with. So the first thing I want to do is open up this box and see what's inside. For that, I need to unplug it, give it a twist, and now we can open it up. So this is a very clever way of deciding which path needs to be powered or not. We are basically rotating a camshaft. This is going to push with the spring power against this brass wheel, and that way we are only going to push one type of filament. Seriously impressive stuff, and actually very clever and simple design. Looking at the inside, we have a fan right over here, which is going to cool the steppers. The steppers are soldered into the board, which means they are non-replaceable. We can also see this blue connector is not pushed in all the way, yet it is glued. Now, fortunately for me, this is not giving me issues, but this one right over here is not plugged in all the way. This is going to be your USB connection. This one runs to the tool head. We have the annoying beeper right over here that makes a more welcoming noise. This is going to be your voltage selector. Power supply right over here, our poop chute. This right over here is our EMS connection, and no loose bolts to be found. This is looking actually pretty decent. So we don't have a lot to complain about. The only thing I can say is we have non-replaceable steppers right over here, and the board is looking pretty cheap, so yeah. So right now the lowest price I could find was 375 euros at the demo of filming, and this was including shipping. So 375 euros for 220 millimeters cube. What do you think about it? Is it too small? Are you interested in all these multicolor options? What I can say personally, comparing it with the GD box right over there with the printer that costs altogether over 1000 euros, this is a pretty sweet deal. Ignore the box, do all your multicolor stuff on this one. You only have to pay about 100 euro more to get this machine and don't have to struggle with what we call the GD box. So this was my view on the Flashforge AD5X. I have to say, I didn't start with the biggest of confidence, but right now after all this testing, I can say that maybe this machine is actually worth it. About that clipper bullshit, there is apparently a mod, I think it's called Z-mod. You can install it on your printer and that should open you up to mainsail and fluid. I didn't test it. I would love to hear from you guys if you want me to test it. If so, let me know down in the comments if you want a guide on how to get this clipperized, which means open it up. And if not, thank you very much for watching. Like always, I want to thank my members on the channel for supporting the cause that we do. Make sure you push the like button and that you are subscribed. And guys, I see you in the next one.